So Ben, let me ask you.
Yes,
Ben.
Ben, please.
Do you remember that Disney movie Mars Needs Moms?
Yes, I was thinking about that recently with the release of Robert Zemeckis' new movie Here, because I believe that was part of like the limited Disney deal he had with this company, Image Movers.
Yes.
I have not seen
and
Mars Needs Moms, but I am familiar with it. Yes.
yeah, so I watched that film actually recently. I remember seeing the ads for it 13 years ago when it came out, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. It's a motion capture film. And the basic premise, everyone knows this from the trailer, is that you have this kid, this kind of spoiled middle class white American kid who doesn't listen to his mother, and then one day his mother gets kidnapped by Martians. And he's like, why is this happening? And then he finds out from Dan Fogler from Fanboys. He finds out from Dan Fogler, it's because Martians don't know how to take care of their own children. They don't know how to make their children happy. So we need to abduct women from Earth to like help us with like our child problem, and we're going to take their expertise and plug them into robots. Now imagine if these Martians in this film did that. They came to that same conclusion. It's like, oh, let's kidnap women instead of Santa. Like that would be that'll work for us.
Well, it's not that far off from the plot of
It's
this,
not. It's
this
not
film.
that far off. It's not. So yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Ben, your underground conductor, and welcome to Underground Cinema. Today I have with me Ben. Say hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be really fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
No, I'm really happy to have you on. This is the first time we've spoken, I think, since college, right?
Yeah, it's been a few years.
Yeah.
Pre-pandemic, as we like to say.
No. Yeah. Well, I think we did see each other like during our graduation ceremony.
That's right.
Came back
right.
for that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a mess. That was a mess. So I'll like to give the viewers some background here. Ben and I, aside from us having the same name, actually have an interesting shared history. We went to the same high school.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We had the same video production class. We did a couple projects together. There was the Star Wars one where we fought each other in class.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then there was the one where I was like Michael Jackson, the Weekend and Prince.
I don't know if I remember that. Oh,
we shot it,
wait a minute.
We shot it at your house. Yeah. Do you still have that?
Was that the one where we had you on green? No. Oh no, you were like sitting around the table, like we did like a split screen thing, right?
Yeah, we did a split screen thing. Yeah.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, do you still have that somewhere?
No, I visited our video production teacher, Mr. Shout out to Mr. Delgado, Dean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
good old I visited him a few years ago with a hard drive. I think it was probably like a few years after high school, after we graduated. And I asked him like, "Hey, I didn't save any of my video production projects. Do you happen to have them?" And he sadly did not. So I think it just exists in our memories now.
That is a trip because I want to include a little bit of footage here. Although you post, I remember you posting a lot of it to like your old channel. What was your production tag called? Something pencil, broken pencil.
I did a random word generator thing to get my production company name. My old one back in like early college or high school. It was called Pencil Tragedy Productions.
That was what it was. Yeah. Yeah. What happened to that?
I mean, I'm not using that name anymore, but I'm still making films. Yeah.
But that channel, it's nowhere now. You got rid of all.
I'm not sure any of those videos. I was very bad at cataloging stuff back then. So if I had it, it would have been on my old laptop, which I don't think I can even get running anymore.
Gotcha. We'll try to track some stuff down later. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's always fun showing the cringe stuff you did when you were a kid. But you know, we had video production classes together. We went to the same high school. We were both technically part of student government. You were treasurer, right?
100%. We were part of it then.
Yeah, I was the ASBTA, and you were an officer. So, technically.
So you were technically part of the government. You were the TA for our teacher for that period that we had it.
I was like the secretary's secretary.
Yeah, assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah, exactly. I was basically that. It was less than middle management. So we had that. We obviously went to the same film school. I was in the screenwriting track, you in the narrative production track. We were even both nominated prom king.
Dude, you were going down memory lane here.
I'm just trying to hammer home. I'm just trying to hammer home these links and say, hey, this is our track. These are the steps we've taken to this point. And you know, this is part of my revenge arc since you beat me for the prom crown.
Well, there's always time for a rematch.
And there's always time for a rematch. Anyway, I'm excited to have you here today because we're going to be talking about a film that I would not know about, you know, unless it was for you, and that'd be Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. I know. I found this DVD like 2 months ago.
Where did you find it?
I found it at a book off.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no,
Lakewood or Garden Grove?
It was the one in Lakewood.
Gotcha. Good one.
Yeah, no, I go shopping for like physical media a lot, and I just go around and find different ones at different places. I was shocked to find this one. I was truly shocked to find this one. I think it was like $5.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one of those movies. You know, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is one of those movies that you can find so many different copies of because it's a public domain film. I'm assuming that's why you originally showed it.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to get into it, but yeah, the reason why I introduced that movie to you and a very small number of other people from our high schools, we're having. I think I was in charge of doing like a movie night screening thing for the school. And do you remember we initially wanted to show? Do you remember that?
I think it was Star Wars, wasn't it?
It was not just Star Wars, but my uncle, who's another big cinephile, big custodian of physical media, lots of like DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. He was showing his collection one time, and he had the original trilogy on DVD when the special edition first came out, but when they still had as a bonus feature the theatrical cuts of the original trilogy. And he doesn't really care about that sort of thing. Same way I do. So he just gave me his collection. So I think actually in I don't know if you had the film class in high school our senior year.
I didn't.
No. But that class too, like our teacher wanted to show Star Wars, but regrettably didn't have a theatrical version. But I luckily did, so I was able to supply that. But anyway, we wanted to do a movie night for the school, and we actually did this. I don't know if you remember, but we did this big announcement like, we're going to show Star Wars.
I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember
it actually was
like
yesterday.
Yeah. I remember saying on the announcements, like, the new movie's coming out this year, so what the hell? Why don't we watch it?
Yeah, it was the Force Awakens year.
Yeah, it was the Force Awakens.
Which, as people like to say, is Phantom Menace Part 2. Like the level of hype for it.
It was. I'm surprised that there's not a fanboys-esque movie about that. It's been almost 10 years since the Force Awakens.
There probably will be.
Hopefully there will be. But yeah, no, I remember that specifically, and you couldn't. It was an odd thing because at that point Disney hadn't bought Fox yet, but Disney had bought Lucasfilm like 3 years earlier, and you could not. And, you know, people may not know this. When you want to show a film to, like, an audience of more than, like, 20 people, something like that, you need
a public screening of any sort.
It's a public screening, pretty much. You need, like, permission because it's technically you distributing something that you do not own. It's an art form. And, you know, we couldn't get that.
Well, yeah, you need – it's a question of money, too. Like, it is a licensing thing. Like, you need to pay a fee in order to screen something.
Yep.
But yeah, I think I think Disney is like famously cagey with like public screenings of their films, and since they had just bought Lucasfilm, it was even more difficult than usual. So as kind of a pivot, I decided to screen this film, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, for our high school class. To everybody's confusion, but
because they were like,
so I was happy.
Yeah, because they were like, "Why are we watching Star Wars? What happened here?" Nope. You promised everyone the theatrical cut of Star Wars, and instead you delivered Santa Claus Conquers the Martians because it was a public domain film. Which, by the way, I'm not sure if you ever looked into it. You probably did. You know the reason why this is public domain, right? Because it only just turned 60. It just turned 60.
Tell me, please.
The reason it's in the public domain is because they forgot to add the copyright to the film when they distributed it.
Nice.
Very similar thing to like Night of the Living Dead, which I think
I was gonna say.
I think that's probably the most famous like public domain film. It's like they didn't do it, and as a result, it just fell into copyright. That's why there's a million DVD copies of this. I mean, Kino Lorber, which is very famous physical media distributor and film restoration company, they did their own version of this back in like 2012 because they could.
Right.
These are the but yeah, no, you introduced us to that film, and I don't think I ever told you this. I feel like I'm the only guy in that entire screening who actually liked the movie.
Well, to be fair, there weren't a lot of guys in the screening. So
there weren't.
That makes it more believable.
Yeah, how many people were there? Like 14, 15? What?
That sounds generous. My college application essays might think differently, but yeah, it was not a huge turnout.
Yeah, it was not a huge turnout. Like, it was an A for effort, but like I remember like people were distinctly bored during that screening. I'm
gonna be honest. It's kind of a boring movie.
It is kind of a boring movie. Let's get into the plot. As you've seen in my reviews, I often give a synopsis of the plot. This is relatively simple. There's some, there's some minor details, obviously, I want to get into, but like this is a relatively simple plot. The plot of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians is essentially you have these you open up with like a fake news broadcast from a television station, and that's actually quite interesting. I want to get into that in a second. But like the news broadcast is actually being watched by a couple Martian kids. The Martian kids are named Bomar and Gurmar. And I just found this out last night, and I thought it was so hilarious. All the names of the central characters, they're based on who they are. Bomar, boy Martian. Gurmar, girl Martian.
Really?
Yes. The mother is Momar, mom Martian. The main guy, the leader of the Martian people, who's the father of the kids, he's Kimar, King Martian.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I did not put that together, but that makes a lot of sense.
I felt stupid. I didn't realize it because I just found that out last night. I was looking into it and I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's very clever. It was very clever of them. I'll give kudos to them. It was very clever for them to do that. It's like, oh, well, we want to have alien sounding names, but we also want like simple attributes to give to these characters. What do we do? That. Yeah. I thought that was clever. But you have Bomar and Gurmar. They're watching a TV broadcast of like a news announcer like interviewing Santa at the North Pole.
Yeah, he got exclusive access.
He got exclusive access somehow. I bet it was a Coca-Cola sponsorship.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, it's like anyway, they're there. Santa's introducing himself. The kids are obviously captivated. And while they're there, there's an elf. What's his name? I have it written down. Winky. Yes. Yeah. Jinx. Winky has crafted a doll of what he thinks a Martian looks like, and it's exactly right.
It's spot on. That was one of the notes I took. Like how.
I took the same note. I took the same note. It's like, how did he do that? Like, has he had like a close encounter? Did he have like a Paul situation? Did he get abducted? Did he have like a dream? Like, How did he got it right? And he's like the only elf in the movie that talks. He has like one line later in the movie when the Martians come to get Santa.
Right.
I want to know about Winky. I want to know how did he know?
Let's release the Winky cut. You know?
Release the Winky cut. Hashtag release the Winky cut. Anyway, it's a doll of what Winky thinks a Martian looks like. It's very interesting, like how he perceives that, obviously. But at this moment, Kimar has come home. He's greeting his wife, and he's wondering how the kids are doing. And it's like, oh, the kids, they're discontent, they're not happy. Like, what's going on here? And apparently, this is happening with children across Mars. Kimar has no idea what to do, and his wife suggests the very simple and yet very obvious idea of, why don't you just talk to the local elder? He would know. Just talk to the old...
Talk to Chochum.
Talk to Chochum, who's 800 years old. Literally 800 years old. And Kimar's, who's talked to this guy many other times before, is like, you know what, wife? That is a good idea. I'm going to do that. I'm glad I have you around. I love my wife. I love women. I
never would have come to that conclusion on my own,
No, he wouldn't. He wouldn't. Yeah. So he and his council, they go to talk to Chochum, and that's also where we get introduced to like the film's antagonist. It's Voldemar, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Maybe it's Vildmar. Because if it's Vilmar, that'd be Villain Martian. I forget. I forget his name. I didn't check on that.
I did not either. I'm sad to say.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Before as we meet the film's villain, he's a Martian with a mustache.
Yeah, that's how you know he's bad.
I know, right? I know. And we meet Chochum, and Kimar's like, hey, our kids are a little. What do we do? And Chochum's like, well, it's very obvious what happened. They're not kids; they're adults in kids' bodies. You inject information into their brains by the time they're born, and by the time they can walk, they're mini adult Martians. They need to be allowed to be kids. This is like December on Earth. It's September on Mars, but December on Earth, which I think is interesting. Is obviously
September, actually, they call it.
They call it September. You're right,
because days are different on Mars. Yeah.
You're right, and Mars and Mars also has a shorter year than Earth.
Exactly. Something you touched on there. Is it Chochum, or is it somebody else who says the thing about it's adult minds and children's bodies?
It's Chochum who says that. Okay. Yeah.
It felt like a very Gene Roddenberry idea. It felt very like Star Trek.
They're like, this film did feel distinctly, and it's probably because Star Trek had just started. Well,
I don't think it had yet. I think it premiered in 66.
So the first episode of Star Trek was produced in 63. The one with Captain Pike.
Pike, yeah.
Before Kirk came in. The Star Trek pilot was made in 63. Gotcha. So I don't know if it was distributed. I have no idea. But I imagine it probably would have been in circulation in the entertainment industry. And, this does have certain vibes to Star Trek, especially like the certain fight scenes. You see the fight scenes between certain characters. It's like, oh, it's like Kirk fighting the Gorn.
Yeah, well, just kind of Chochum's set, too. Like, the way that the kind of rocks look, and especially the lighting. The kind of like gel lighting they have on Chochum to make him look mystical. Felt very... he's like an elder character. He's the guy you go to for like advice. He's sort of like an oracle type. And he's like adult minds and kids' bodies, and you're right, that is very like Roddenberry Star Trek, like high concept philosophy sci-fi. Yeah. He's probably the best character in the movie, for being honest, Chochum. I wanted him to come back.
Yeah.
I wanted him and Santa to have an interaction. Yeah.
Imagine Chochum meets Winky. And off we get. The Chochum and Winky.
Yeah.
But I mean, if him and Santa had actually interacted, like you said, that would be amazing. But Chochum's like, yeah, we need to let kids be kids. Radical idea. We need a Santa Claus of our own. And then he goes back to his cave, as you do when you're 800 years old. Right. And the council's like, oh, we need our own Santa Claus. What do we do? And then Kimar, in his great wisdom as King of Mars, is like, well, there's only one Santa Claus. Why don't we get that guy? We'll do a little kidnapping. We'll do a little human trafficking.
We'll just grab him.
Yeah, we'll just grab him. Which, by the way, I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to bring this up earlier. I just remembered it now. So what reminded me of this film, I actually thought about this film 3 years ago, or it came back to me 3 years ago. And the reason it came back to me was because of the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember watching the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special when it released on Disney Plus, 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And when it released, the plot of that is very similar to Santa Claus Conquers the Martians in the sense that you have these two characters, Drax and Mantis, who are trying to get someone to cheer up Peter Quill for the holidays. They're trying to get Kevin Bacon. So it's a similar plot. But when you go to Kevin Bacon's house to kidnap him, on his TV, he's playing Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Like that it is playing on there, and I'm like, oh, James Gunn, you sly dog.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I was gonna say, like, James Gunn has 100% seen this movie. Like,
oh, absolutely.
yeah, like direct line from like this to like the early like trauma stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, there's a clear. It's like very. Well, it was Harvey Korman, right?
Harvey Korman,
like the guy who did Trauma, like who did all the Trauma.
Oh,
Frankenhooker and the Toxic Avenger.
I'm not positive on the name.
Well, I'll look into it. Well, I'll put it up here.
Oh yeah, that was it.
yeah, that's it. Anyway, it's a very similar plot, and I just find it funny that they did that. But they're all like, let's just kidnap a guy to make the kids happy. That will make the kids happy. We'll kidnap a guy. So they go to Earth, and they look for Santa, and then they discover that there's a Santa on every block. They're unfamiliar with the concept of like charity Santas that go around and they try to raise money for like whatever. And I'll say this right now: this movie would have been infinitely more funny if they had picked up one of the fake ones.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah. If they had just picked up one of the fake like sidewalk Santas, it would have been infinitely funnier. It's like,
well, that adds that like fake sidewalk Santa suddenly has to like live up to the legend that they built up for them. That would have gotten into more the true meaning of Christmas too.
It would have. I feel like
that's a way better movie.
Yeah, they should have done that. They should have hired me to do that, before I was born. But they didn't do that. They should have done that though. But they're confused obviously because it's like there's Santa Clauses on every block and they don't know what to do. So it's like, what do we do? Why don't we ask some kids? So they talk to a couple kids and they ask the kids, where's Santa? And the kids are like, ooh, Martians. What are we gonna do? And the kids are like, well, everyone knows Santa lives at the North Pole, which everyone does know that. They could have asked anyone that. Or they could have just watched some TV, like the Martian kids did to find out that.
They could have watched the Earth program.
They could have watched the Earth program. But, they go to the North Pole and they take the kids with them. They kidnap the children because it's like, we can't let these kids report us to the Earth authorities. Yeah. And it was the villain's idea. The villain was all like, yeah, we're going to do that.
Very questionable. Like, I guess we have to kidnap these kids now.
We have to kidnap these kids. It's so stupid. This is gonna bother me. I think I have the villain's name written down right here. AC. No. It is Voldar. It is Voldar. Voldar. That is his name. But he's like, we have to kidnap these kids. And they go to the North Pole. The kids escape, and he's like, well, no, I told you we should have killed them, Voldar. So I'm like. And then the kids get attacked by a guy in a polar bear suit.
Well, because it's the polar bear and then the big robot, right?
It's the polar bear and then the big robot. A guy in a big polar bear suit and then a guy in a big robot suit. Which I
wonder if it's the same guy.
I thought exactly the same thing. It's like, was it just the same guy? He ran off set in between scenes, changed, and then is like, okay, I'm coming out as the big robot now. This is going to be a big deal for me. I'm going to get a huge credit for this movie. It's going to jumpstart my whole career.
Yeah. Well, I just love the idea of him walking out onto the set. He spent half an hour getting into the polar bear suit. To like, no, Joey, we need you in the robot today. Okay.
It's like, I went to theater school. I want to do Broadway. Now I'm here.
Yeah.
But they get attacked by the polar bear and then the big robot. And, Voldar shows up and he's like, he orders the robot to kill the kids. The robot doesn't because the robot's been programmed to only obey the orders of Kimar, the King Martian.
Very Isaac Asimov.
Yeah. Like 3 laws of robotics. Very simple. Very simple. You do not hurt a human being. Do not take an order to hurt a human being. Do not violate the first 2 laws. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway, they go to Santa's workshop, and the robot breaks down the door, and Santa's like, "Oh my god, what a wonderful toy!" And when he said that, I thought to myself, "Well, I guess the robot does kind of look like a big nutcracker."
Yeah, that, and I don't know. I think it says something about Santa that he maybe just the fact that he's trying to buy toys all day every day.
Yeah,
But
so like
he's just ready to claim something as his own. Of like, oh, this looks like one of my creations.
which I love, and
Kind of a god complex, you know.
Well, it's not just a god complex, but it's also like he's just a grandpa. Like that is exactly what he is. Like, and they do this with a lot of different movies that have a Santa character. They always nail it. Like John Call, who plays Santa in this movie, I think he does a great job as the character. Yeah. He's really good. He's really perfect. He's just a coy grandpa. He's like, oh my god, look at this, and he's telling jokes all the time. And it's great. But the Martians are like, oh, this isn't gonna do. So they go in, and then they're like, oh, we gotta deal with this. And then Winky's like, no, you can't stop. Winky the goat. He's the goat in this movie. And then the Martians freeze Winky and another elf, and Santa's like, oh, why'd you do that? They were innocent. They were my helpers. And Kimar shows up, and Kimar's like, don't worry, we'll wear off in a little bit. And Santa's like, oh, well, you should. Okay, why didn't you tell me that earlier? Then Mrs. Claus comes out yapping, and they freeze her too. And Santa, instead of being concerned about his wife, is all like, oh, she's going to be so angry when that wears off. Why do you have to do that?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, you're coming with us to Mars. And he's like, well, okay, I guess. Whatever to get me away from my wife. I was
gonna say Santa is very relaxed about the whole kidnapping.
He's
situation.
So relaxed about the whole thing. He's just like, well, this is a change of scenery. I can do this.
Yeah, especially as close to Christmas as they get.
Yeah,
he's not worried at all about his responsibilities back home or anything.
Yeah, it's like the first week of December, and he's like, "No, I can take a trip. I can take a day trip to Mars. It's fine." Anyway, they go to Mars, and they face a little bit of trouble on the way. Santa is obviously making the crew more jovial. He's telling jokes to people. We get an amazing joke. I think it's probably it's genuinely like one of the only jokes in the movie that got a genuine laugh out of me. Like when I was rewatching this film, I was like, he's like, the Martian guy says, oh, what's big and round and you roast it in a fire and it's green? A roasted Martian mellow. It genuinely got shook on me. It's like, that's such a dad joke. I love that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was gonna say, I love I think the first time you see Santa on the spaceship as they're going back to Mars, like he's not down in the dumps, he's not like angry at the Martians. He sees the two kids and he's just gonna entertain them, He's gonna make them feel more comfortable.
He's such a wholesome like holiday figure, and that is like the glue that holds this film together. Yeah. Like just him and his relationship to other characters. Anyway, Voldemar tries to kill them, as he does. He locks them in the airlock. But it's fine. They get out. And I love that they didn't show this in the film. Mm-hmm. One, because it would have looked bad. It was the 60s. And two, because you don't have to see it. Like, if you know anything about Santa lore, it's like, oh, he goes down the chimney. Taps his nose, goes down the chimney.
Right.
And it's like, oh, well, this is basically a chimney thing. He can squeeze through that. Mm-hmm. We didn't have to see it. And I'm glad that we didn't. It's, you're respecting the audience enough not to, like, they'd be able to figure it out.
It's well done. I like that. I like that moment a lot.
I like that a lot as well. Anyway, they get to Mars. They lock up Voldemar, but Voldemar escapes, and he locks up Droppo, who's the comic relief character. Droppo, love Droppo. He's very much like in the same vein as like Art Carney, like from The Honeymooners. Mm. Which, speaking of The Honeymooners, I want to get into something else. So, Art Carney's character from The Honeymooners obviously inspired Barney Gumble from the Flintstones.
Okay.
And one of the central reoccurring characters in the Flintstones is the Great Gazoo. And when I was rewatching Santa Claus Conquers The Martians, I'm looking at the Martians and I think to myself, why do the Martians look exactly like the Great Gazoo?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because, they're green, obviously. They wear the green suits and the green boots. They have green helmets and they have antennas. and like their belts have like 3 circles on them in the shape of like a triangle, like an upside down triangle. And the Great Gazoo looks exactly the same. They even both wear green capes, and his belt is just a triangle. It's so weird.
You're onto something.
And the Great Gazoo was introduced in the Flintstones a year later in 1965.
Interesting.
Like I connected those dots immediately. The fact that the Great Gazoo looks exactly like a Martian from this movie. And then I looked into it. Apparently, the Great Gazoo was inspired by a professor named Bill Moore at CalArts.
And Bill Moore worked on this movie.
Yes. So.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
You don't know that? Okay, I was about to say. But no, Bill Moore inspired the Great Gazoo. But I'm just wondering, like, did someone at Hanna-Barbera see Santa Claus Conquers the Martians?
Yeah, it's almost like a Star Wars thing of like it was inspired by so many things, and then it inspired things after it, and like how much of it was intentional, how much of it was a coincidence. It's fascinating.
It's really fascinating. And when I put those dots together in my head, I immediately was like, what happened here? This cannot be a coincidence. The designs look too similar. I'll put an image right here of them side by side. They look too similar.
Hey, there's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly obvious.
Yeah. Anyway, so they get back to Mars. The Bomar and Gurmar meet the children, and then they meet Santa. They seem happy. They seem happier when Santa shows up, because who doesn't love Santa? And then they immediately set up a workshop for Santa, and it's completely automated. And Santa makes a comment being all like, you don't have to make things by hand anymore, automation, all that. And I'm like, there's so much commentary in this film.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me of that, and in the beginning of the movie, see, the Martians don't eat food; they eat food pills.
They eat full pills. I want to talk about that a bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. It's like, food in pill form. Automation, automating away jobs. You don't have to hand make toys anymore. They're just made with the push of a button. They bring up the Soviet Union early on in the movie in relation to like whether or not the UFO is related to the Soviet Union. During that interview at the beginning, when Santa is like talking about all his reindeer, he calls one of them Nixon, not Nixon. Yeah, and I'm like, whoa. Obviously, the Martian kid's watching TV all the time, and the King Martian being concerned. That's sort of in the same vein as that idea of, TV's going to rot your brain, which has been around ever since TV's been around. Oh, and then there's when we meet the character of Werner von Green, who works for like the space division of the government. You see him in one scene, and he looks like Einstein, and I'm like, you made a hybrid character of Albert Einstein and Werner von Braun?
Yeah.
That is not only weird, but incredibly offensive if you know who Werner von Braun was. Yeah. I'm not even going to have the audience look it up. I'm just going to tell you straight up. Werner von Braun, who built most of NASA, very distinct figure in the American space program. He was a Nazi, a very notable Nazi, very high-ranking Nazi. He was picked up after the war, Project Paperclip, look it up, and he's the one who got us to the moon. But the fact that there's a character in this movie called Werner von Green, and he looks like Einstein, and Einstein
to throw you off the scent in case the name was too close.
Yeah, it's like this film just does so many weird things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, back to the toy stuff though. Voldemar, he's in a cave. He's hiding in a cave with some other Martians, and he's like, "We're going to destroy the toy shop, and we're going to kill Santa, and we're going to do the Three Stooges, and hopefully no one will notice." They do the Three Stooges. Mm-hmm. Like the moment they get into the toy shop to like dismantle everything, they're like, "Ow, ow!" And while all that's happening, obviously the boy and girl from Earth, they're sad. They're now feeling the same way the Martian kids felt before Santa showed up. And why are they feeling that way? Because they were kidnapped.
Yeah. I don't think they talk about. I think they're saying like, oh no, they're fine with the kidnapping. They're homesick. The Martian apathy is finally hitting them.
Yeah, it's like they're homesick.
Yeah.
It's like okay, we'll go with that. Anywho, but yeah, the Three Stooges go to Santa's workshop and they come across Droppo, who's in Santa's spare suit. and they confuse Droppo for Santa somehow.
Somehow.
Yeah. Like, despite the fact that Droppo is green, who knows? Maybe they're colorblind. He also has.
That's an interesting idea.
Maybe they're colorblind. Who knows?
Yeah.
But putting that aside, he's still wearing the helmet with the antenna.
I know, man.
And that brings me to something I really want to like touch on. Voldemar as a character is a stupid antagonist. Like, he's legitimately a dumb character, and his motivation is not thought through at all. And
No.
I think that's part of the joke. But like in the movie, he's like, we Martians used to be great warriors, and you want to change our entire culture and let kids be kids, and turn them into mush-brained idiots. It's like, what are you doing? And it's like, do you not realize the contradiction in what you just said? You're complaining that Martians used to be great warriors, but you're also saying that you shouldn't change the way things currently are because you're going to turn all the children into mush-brained idiots. But it's been established in this film already that the whole information download thing to the kids' brains has only happened within the last few centuries, enough that Chochim himself has noticed. So do you not realize that if you stop doing that and let kids be kids, that eventually Mars will probably become a warlike culture again?
Yeah, I feel like it's the kind of movie you can't think about it too much.
I think you have to.
The whole illusion falls apart.
Well, I think you have to think about this because this movie does say a lot of things that it kind of wants you. It points to things that it wants you to notice, like the Nixon thing or or other stuff. It's like it wants you to notice stuff, and it's just like, what's going on here? Anyway, Anyway, they kidnap Droppo. Then they're like, ha ha ha, we're going to blackmail the president. We're going to blackmail the president or whatever. We're going to blackmail King Martian. And King Martian's like, but haha, I have Santa here, you see, and I have the upper hand. And it's like, aha, but we're in the closet now. We're going to beat you up. Haha. It's a back and forth thing. And then I'm tired, man. The kids start shooting Voldar with toys, and Santa starts laughing, which is great. And Voldar is like, "What's going on? I don't know what's going on." And then Droppo comes back, and he's fine because he figured out how to escape from the cave because he's smarter than the Stooges. And Art Carney was always better than the Three Stooges.
Hot take.
I know. I'm gonna get fried. And Kimar's like, okay, that's enough, kids. Ceasefire. And then Voldar's like, curses. I'll be back again one day. Except no, you won't. You won't. But yeah, the conflict's wrapped up. They take the kids back to Earth. The Earth kids and the Mars kids say their goodbyes. Kimar thanks Santa for his help on Mars. Yeah, something like that. And then it's like, okay, time to go. And then we get the outro of the song in the movie, Hooray for Santa Claus, which is genuinely a bop. It's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's a good one. It's a good one. And that's
Santa Claus.
Hooray for Santa Claus. And that's the movie. It's boring.
I was very into it in the beginning, maybe just because I watched it so late at night. But once Santa actually gets kidnapped, I think the movie loses all of its steam for me.
So it's an odd thing for me because I think the film is very slow paced. I haven't even talked about this. I don't know. I tried to look into it. I couldn't find any information. Do you know if this was a TV movie or not?
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't. I don't think it originally aired on TV. I think it did play in theaters, at least for an initial run.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if it played on TV at some point,
even
the years after its theatrical release.
Yeah, I was just wondering because there's a couple things. Obviously, it was shot in 4:3, but that's fine. A lot of movies pre 1970 were shot in 4:3, but that's one thing I noticed. Another thing I noticed is that the color grading is kind of odd in the film. It looks like it was shot in black and white and then colorized. And also, there's a couple distinct act breaks in the film where
I did notice that.
Yeah. So maybe it was shot for TV and then put in theaters because they were like, "Oh, we put some money behind this."
Possibly that happens. I'm guessing the color grade though. I'm guessing it was just since it's such a low budget film. I'm guessing it was just shot on like short ends or like a really cheap film stock.
That's
or
true.
Whatever lab they went through was maybe not state of the art.
Maybe.
But I don't think it was shot black and white and then colorized because that kind of has its own look to it.
It does have its own look. It's very unique. It's
very unique. Very unique. Yeah.
It's very unique, and it's very clearly shot on film.
Totally.
And you know, funny thing.
I thought they shot on the Alexa. No?
maybe. But no, the movie does have an interesting, distinct visual tone, and you settle it. Not only do you settle into it, but you also grow to appreciate it. Like, there's things I really like about this film. Like, the film is incredibly charming. Like, I would say it like any Christmas film, like, you have to buy into the tone, otherwise nothing else works. And I think that this film does like have that sort of cheerful, like, jovial tone. It has that charm about it, and I think that's why, you know, I liked it when you originally showed it, and you know, I still like it.
It stood the test of time.
I think it has. I think it has stood the test of time. 60 years. But there's also things about this movie that, and I'm pretty sure these are unintentional, but like the world building elements of this film are kind of interesting. Because, you know, Kimar at the beginning of the movie is complaining about how his kids are getting wrapped up in like all this TV nonsense, these Earth shows. And I think it's interesting because it sort of communicates something implicitly that I don't think was intentional. Because the reason that there's so many Earth references on Mars was because, you know, when they were making sci-fi movies in the 50s and 60s, they didn't really think deeply about the world building of, like, you know, an alien species. They just didn't. But with this movie, I think it's interesting because I feel like the world building is unintentional. Because they're complaining about their kids watching these Earth shows, and I think that translates to a larger issue that maybe, like, Martian culture is adopting more and more of Earth culture. Because the food pills, like I said, I want to come back to those. The food pills are the flavors of different Earth foods, like hamburger or celery or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like their months are clearly based, like their calendar is clearly based on the Julian calendar because they say, oh, it's September. So, and obviously the kids are watching Martian TV. Earth TV, and I also checked this. The broadcast waves made sense because, you know, people may or may not know this. When you broadcast a TV signal, it's like a radio wave, and it travels roughly at the speed of light. So if you sent a broadcast to Mars, it would take roughly 4 or 5 minutes to get to Mars. So it would be sent in roughly real time. So I think what the movie is suggesting unintentionally is that more and more of Martian culture is adopting like Earth culture, and that has become an issue, and it's stagnating like the current like child generation. So that's why they're concerned about it.
I'm curious how much of that is like a political commentary on the time. Like, this movie was made in '64, height of the Cold War. How much of that is like, oh, these European countries and this next generation of kids, with the advent of television, they're consuming so much more American culture than before.
Yep.
And we, as a superpower, can't have that. We need to get back to our roots and be the conquerors. You know?
Yeah, no, that you're absolutely right. That was a big thing, especially like post World War II. Like, for instance, the generation that came up in Japan after World War II, they were called the Smile Generation or the Sunshine Generation, something like that. And they were famous for just adopting more and more aspects of American culture as opposed to like traditional Japanese culture. And, you know, a lot of that was obviously due to the large military presence that was in Japan at the time. But you're right. You're probably right. A lot of it probably is commentary, Cold War commentary, as most art was from like the 50s to the 90s.
Even in this, you know, kids' Christmas movie.
Yeah, even in this kids' Christmas movie.
No. What you were saying about like the food pills, and we were talking about like the critique on automation and stuff. Bringing it back to Star Wars, a lot of this felt very George Lucas. Like, a lot of it, I thought, of course, about Star Wars, but of THX a lot with some of the critiques of the Martian, like the modernist kind of culture, because the automated toy making thing, and then the food pills. It reminded me of Have you seen THX?
I was just rewatching THX last week. Funny you mention it. I was,
nice.
and you know when La like replaces Thex's pills, like to get him off of his what do they call it? You know, it's like he's not dosed anymore, pretty much.
Right.
So yeah.
But it reminded me of in that movie where they, I think THX will like just go to a store and just buy like a colorful kind of cube, and then he immediately throws it away.
Yeah, it's consumerism.
Yeah, which is George Lucas. Oh, it's a critique on consumerism. I don't know. I thought about that a lot while watching this.
Yeah, it's funny because I did think about THX when I was watching this, but the thing that this film really reminded me of was Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Very Ed Wood quality to the whole thing. Yeah.
Very, very well. It was also more expensive than Plan 9. This movie was roughly $200,000. Plan 9 was like $60,000.
Yeah.
But it's you know, it had that vibe. You know, the obviously use of stock footage for one.
I was gonna say it felt like that scene in Ed Wood when he gets all the stock footage, like, oh, and then the octopus attacked, and so the U.S. sends their military in.
Yep.
Like he's just writing a story around the stock footage that he's given.
That was his ultimate goal, to eventually make a movie out of stock footage. But yeah, this movie does use some stock footage, some like military stock footage when the government finds out that, you know, the aliens are
a little more than I needed. I thought it went on a little long.
It was a bit, but that's why it reminded me of Plan 9. There was a bit of that. Also like the Martian costumes. I mean, to be fair, like this was pretty standard for like sci-fi of the time. Definitely. Where it would just be like a synthetic costume and like some face paint, which, by the way, was it me? Like I watched this on DVD, you know, compressed quality. The makeup still looked bad. Was that just me?
I feel like I could kind of see the smears and like the actual skin tones of the actors.
Yeah.
It. Like, yeah. I don't think they had a makeup artist. I think they had someone who did the makeup.
Yeah. Sense. I think you're right. And, you know, that's why I'll give Plan 9 and other Ed Wood movies a leg up, because the makeup in Plan 9 looks actually good. Like the zombies in that film look like actual like zombies.
Like thought and care put into the look of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, they put enough effort into this cheap movie. So yeah, that's a problem I had. That's a problem I had with saying Claus Conquers The Martians. Like the makeup looked bad. The movie was remarkably slow. Like you said, you were sort of into it at the beginning, and then you sort of fell off at the end. For me, I kept on going in and off because the movie has such a poor pace. Like they don't get Santa until like I think 35 minutes into the film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, we are introduced to Santa at the beginning via the TV broadcast, and then it's like we spend a lot of time on Mars, which I was interested in. But at a certain point, I was like, this is like a 70-minute movie. When are they getting Santa?
Yeah.
Like, what? I mean, obviously the title itself is misleading. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It was thumbnail. It was a thumbnail title, pretty much.
I was gonna say, like, I didn't remember much about the movie, but I did remember, like, he doesn't. It's because the title sounds like he's like fighting.
Yeah,
the Martians, or it's going to be like a galactic war.
It's like
Flash Gordon.
Like, yeah, I was about to say like 1940s serial, like Flash Gordon.
But yeah, that's not at all what happens. I mean, he conquers a couple bad Martians, I guess.
Yeah, no, it even says on the DVD, like there's you know, it says Martians kidnap Santa, but it says Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Yeah.
Don't know what to make of it, but it's like the pacing just goes up and down for me, and by the time I get to the end, it almost feels like I watched like two separate TV episodes, which is why I asked whether or not it was like a TV film.
Yeah, like you said, it does kind of have like a holiday special. They only have so many sets, so they're really going to stretch out the scenes, kind of thing.
Yep, they really are. But I do like this film. I don't regret purchasing it. Like,
I enjoyed it.
It's something. I feel like it's, you know, I've said this before about other movies. Like I said this about Hellboy: The Crooked Man when it came out. It feels like a movie you could just have on in the background.
Which one? Hellboy:
The Crooked, the new one that just came out this year.
Oh, there's a new Hellboy movie?
Yeah, I did a review on it because no one heard about it.
Oh, not the David Harbour one.
Nope. This one was a Jack Kesey.
Okay.
Who? Yeah. who's like,
not the David Harbour one that starts with him taking a phone call,
and
then he hangs up by he like puts his like giant finger on the phone and cracks it.
It's a different movie. It's a different movie. It was directed. This one was directed by Brian Taylor, the guy that did Crank.
Brian Taylor, okay.
Yeah, he did Crank, Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance. He co-wrote Jonah Hex. It was that guy.
Part of like a directing team, I thought. No?
Yeah, it was. Neville Dean and Taylor, Brian Taylor, Mark Neville Dean. But he did this Hellboy movie alone.
Oh, they split up. I've noticed a lot of like filmmaking duos.
Yeah,
the Safdies, the Cullens now,
the Wachowskis.
Wachowskis. I'm sure there's some other ones, but it's kind of a bummer, you know.
It is. Like, you guys made your best work together. I mean, I get it. It's like
the Farrelly brothers too.
Yeah. I get it. It's like, it's like when Paul McCartney went solo from the Beatles.
Right.
Like, I get it. That's like, come on, you made your best work together. But yeah, no, like, with that new Hellboy movie, it felt like a movie you could watch in the background, and I feel the same way about Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. It's a movie that you can just have on, and it's like, oh, well, this is it. This is on. This is fine.
Yeah, and it has such a slow pace. You could like kind of go in and out of the room and still get the gist of the story.
Yeah, you're not going to miss anything. That's actually probably one of the big problems with this film. You could probably shave out like 15, 20 minutes because a lot of the film is like shot in real time.
Yeah, that's true.
Like there's not really an effort made to like, oh, well, let's shorten this scene or that scene or I don't know. Like they definitely could have cut some stuff out. Do I have anything else here I wanted to bring up?
You said you wanted to go back to the opening. I love the reveal of like starting on the TV with the American newscaster, and then it's an interesting camera move. Like it pans and it dollies to reveal the Martian kids watching. I thought that was quite interesting.
It was, because that's a stark contrast. I mean, obviously anyone who's watching the movie knows that the movie's going to be about Martians, but they do it right away. Like
it was a great reveal. Yeah.
If you're going to the movie, I thought the same thing. If you go into the movie blind and just start that, and it's like, oh, what are these kids right here? Why are these kids green? Like you're like, what's going on? And then you find out later, oh, they're on Mars. But
lean forward.
Yeah, exactly. I do love that opening. That's not exactly what I want to talk about. I do love that opening though. I thought it was great. It's a really solid way to start the film. But like I meant like the actual like opening credits, because they were very 1960s. Like they were very. It felt like watching like an intro to like the Jetsons or like Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine or like any of the Bond films, really.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Johnny Quest, the Hanna-Barbera sort of stuff.
Yes, which, God, Hanna-Barbera. I have to find out that Great Kazoo thing. I tried looking for details. I couldn't find any confirmation. It's like they look too similar. But like, but no, I do like the intro title sequence because, obviously this was like during that era where they just put all the credits at the beginning of the film.
Mm-hmm. Well, I thought I think there's a little bit of it. I thought all the space shots actually looked pretty decent. Of like the spaceship.
I agree. Like I liked the models. The models of the spaceship. Like,
the models look good. It was well integrated with the backgrounds.
Like
this came out a few years after this short film. I think played at the World's Fair called Universe, which is famous for showing like galaxies and stuff. But all like hand painted. Like it's not photography based at all. But Kubrick liked that so much, he hired some of that team to work on 2001, which would have been happening at the time of this movie.
That's true, because Kubrick was notorious for filming forever.
Yeah, and that movie just took a long time to make.
Yeah.
For this like schlocky, low-budget Christmas film, I thought it didn't look bad,
It did not look bad. It did not look bad. And the director of this film, I should have written down his name. It's Nicholas something. Here's his name.
There it is.
It is. He actually made a different Mars movie like 4 years after this.
What was that called?
I'll just look it up. I'll break the illusion. I'll look it up because I found it earlier.
And that was Mars Needs Moms.
No, imagine if it was.
Zemeckis.
He did. He worked with Robert Zemeckis. Let's see. It was, here we go, Nicholas Webster, and the movie was called Mission Mars. Not Mission to Mars, Mission Mars, 1968. Same year as 2001.
I'm sure they're just as groundbreaking.
Two great films. Two great. Yeah, I can't judge.
I want to check that out now.
I feel like it'd probably be a spiritual sequel to this.
Yeah, that, and I always find it interesting when artists and filmmakers like kind of go back to the same drawing board in a way, or touch on the same subject, because they usually try not to, but when they do, it's usually just like a different approach. Or
like looking at you know, like the similarities between like Close Encounters and E.T. Yeah, or Alien and Blade Runner,
or E.T. and Poltergeist. You know.
Yeah, which I just found out. I found out recently. You saw it in my review. I thought I could have sworn Poltergeist was done by Robert Zemeckis. I could have sworn.
That's funny because everyone. I mean, they talk about it in the 4:30 movie, but it's a Tobe Hooper film. Everyone thinks it's Spielberg, but he thought it was Zemeckis.
I thought it was Zemeckis. It feels like Back to the Future watching that movie.
A bit. That movie's so good. I remember watching that movie for the first time in high school. It was during, I think it was through like a film club thing. So it was at like a older like classmate's house, but like in the suburbs. We start in the afternoon, so like the sun kind of goes down as we're watching it. Back then, I don't watch a lot of horror movies, so it was very effective.
It's such a good one. Oh, God,
still one of my favorites.
I want to rewatch Poltergeist now. It's such a good movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of the sequels. I know there's like 3 of them.
I haven't seen the second one, but the third one's quite good, actually.
Really?
All takes place in one day. A lot of really cool, trippy mirror shots, where it's like it's a different actor playing them, but like they're mirroring each other. I think Edgar Wright was looking at it a lot when he was doing Last Night in Soho. I think that's where I heard about it.
I love Last Night in Soho. That was like one of my favorites of 2022.
That's a good movie.
Really good movie. I love Edgar Wright.
I saw it like 3 times, I think, in theaters.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great film, but it also has a stacked cast. You know, Matt Smith, Anya Taylor-Joy. It was the final performance of I'm trying to remember her name. It was the woman who played Lady Olenna in Game of Thrones.
Don't remember her name.
That was
Terrence Stamp.
Yeah, and there was also the girl from Jojo Rabbit.
It's Thomasin McKenzie, I think.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah. And Fred and George are in it.
Yeah, such a good film.
Yeah.
I feel like we've trailed off. It's like, oh, remember this good film? Remember that good film?
Yeah.
Why don't we watch a better movie?
Well, it's funny that when you asked me to record this with you, I was trying to like orbit, no pun intended, my watching of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians with the new Jesse Eisenberg movie, A Real Pain. So like, if I'm gonna watch Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, I also want to watch like a good movie that day.
Yeah,
they worked out.
I did the exact same thing actually with Mars Needs Moms because I had never seen it, but I have the DVD. Like a friend of mine gave it to me when I helped him move. So I was like, well, here's one Mars movie. Here's another Mars movie. I remember watching the trailer for Mars Needs Moms. I never watched the movie itself, though. So I was like, I'll play these as a double feature. And Mars Needs Moms is actually a really good animated film.
You enjoyed it?
I did enjoy it. I know a lot of people get put off by motion capture. Like, you know, it can be uncanny for them. But I really liked it. You settle into the animation really quickly. It has a good emotional core. It's not too long. My only complaint about the movie is that some of the world building is a bit shallow. They could have gone deeper with some of the stuff. But I thought it was a really good film, like really good animated film. So yeah, I paired that with Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. I had a good time.
Did you see, by the way, that apparently they're remaking this movie in animated form?
That could work.
I feel like it's kind of better, potentially.
Yeah. Imagine. Oh, what if they did it in like the Hanna-Barbera style?
That'd be pretty cool. Oh, they do like a little '60s thing. That'd be awesome.
Or they could do it like in the style of like Jellystone. I'm not sure if you've seen that, like that show Jellystone. No. It's like it's a newer show that I think it's on HBO Max. You can probably check it out. It's a newer show that features a bunch of like old Hanna-Barbera characters.
Oh, cool! Like
and they
actual
live in
characters.
like all the characters from like the old shows, like Dick Dastardly and like all of those, and like they all live together in a town called Jellystone.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost like a
So
Roger Rabbit thing of like different
yeah,
characters from.
yeah, and like Toontown. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking
You
of
even see Space
cinematic,
Ghost in a couple episodes.
what was that?
You even
Space
see
Ghost?
Space Ghost in a couple episodes.
That's cool.
But
That's cool.
yeah, no, like that's all I have to really like. I know you mentioned like when I asked you to do this that there's not a lot to talk about. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. It's just like most of it you have to glean. You have to sort of pick things up from this movie.
Yeah, you got to do the work.
You have to do the work. And to be fair, I noticed things right away. I did notice things right. I picked up more from this movie than I thought I would. I'll be honest about that.
I agree. Same for me.
Yeah, but
I just can't get
you know,
I just can't get your pitch of they pick up one of the sidewalk Santas up instead. Like when like you see the better movie within the movie. I can't unsee that now. Like I just want that.
like with the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. This is in the movie. It's just another thing.
Well, in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, do they kidnap a fake Kevin? Do they get Kevin Bacon wrong at first? Like
they get the real Kevin Bacon. But I think it would be fun. But they go to like talk. They go to Hollywood Boulevard first and like look for like impersonators or whatever.
Oh, that's
it's very often I've seen it. But no, like if they'd done Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, but they get a fake Santa, it would have made the film infinitely better, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would have just been like, oh god, I have to do this now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought about that immediately, like when they got there, and I'm like, come on.
Well, yeah, they're using the magnoscope, they call it. To,
yeah,
like,
they were
look
using
at the different Santas.
Yeah, they were using the magnoscope, and
just get them.
Yeah, and I haven't seen this film in almost 10 years. I haven't seen it since that screening that you had in high school.
Same.
And for a second, I thought that they were actually going to do that they were actually going to grab a different guy.
Yeah.
But nope.
They filmed it.
Yeah. If they do the animated remake, just make it the fake guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it. You gotta do the animated stuff.
Yeah, to make more cynical times, I guess.
Yeah, no, we've all been tainted by irony consistently for the past 25 years.
Yeah.
It's a distinct problem. We need some sincerity. We need Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. I mean, they're also trying to bring back a lot of stuff from the 60s, if you haven't noticed that.
Like, what else would you say?
There was a rumor floating around for a while, and I don't know if it was ever confirmed, but there was a rumor that they were trying to convince Sydney Sweeney to remake Barbarella. Yeah.
I like Barbarella. It's a good movie.
I like Barbarella. I like Jane Fonda. I feel like a Sydney Sweeney like Barbarella could work. Yeah, I have the movie on VHS and DVD.
I got it on a Blu-ray as a gift.
Really? Who gave it to you?
Brandon King.
Really?
Yeah, because our in college, our production design professor, I think he was actually the TA for the class. He showed us Barbarella because I guess he just liked the design of the world and everything.
It's gorgeous. Yeah,
and it's just so not a branded movie. So I just found it very funny that like he went out of his way to purchase it.
Well, give it to me. Well, that's part of the reason why I started this channel. Like, the idea I had, and I've always been, fascinated with like these sort of odd B movies or indie films that don't really go anywhere. Like everyone has at least one weird movie that they are really into that no one else has ever heard of.
Yeah.
That's like every person. And like, when I originally did like the underground cinema screenings when I was in college, like I got a lot of suggestions from people for like movies that they liked, like the Boondock Saints. Anthony was super into that. My friend Maddie, she suggested Barbie, Princess and the Pauper, which is pretty good. Actually, it's actually pretty good.
One of like hundreds of animated Barbie movies, right?
It's like one of 16 of them. Yeah. And I think it's one of the better ones, frankly. Nice. My friend Andy recommended a film called Happiness.
Oh, Todd Solondz. I was just talking to my brother about that one.
What?
I was just talking to my brother about that movie.
It's a nasty film, but it's good.
Yeah, I think that just got a Criterion.
It did just get. I saw it recently. I was at a video store recently, and I saw it. Nice. The Criterion for Happiness.
Yeah. I think that's great. yeah, everyone has those movies that like they feel like they're the only person who loved. I have some I could recommend to you that I think you might enjoy.
Please do.
It's great.
Yeah, please do. You suggest some to me, like, once we wrap this up, and I'll have you come back on when I watch them, and we'll talk about them.
Nice, let's do it, man.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Because that's what I love. That's what I love. I love talking to people about these sort of odd gems, these odd diamonds in the rough.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're rough though.
Sometimes they are rough.
Sometimes they're rough. Anyway, yeah, that was our review of Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. Please feel free to subscribe if you're feeling generous. You can follow me on Instagram or Letterboxd if you want to hear more of my film takes. Ben, where do you want the people to follow you?
I didn't know you're on Letterboxd. I gotta follow you now.
Oh yeah, I'm on Letterboxd. I'll send you my Letterboxd after this.
I too am on Instagram and Letterboxd. Don't mix up mine and Ben's accounts. I mean, you can if you want. I don't mind. Throw Ben a follow. That's cool.
Yeah, here's Ben, and here's Ben. Oh wait.
Oh wait. Yeah. But thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Absolutely, absolutely, dude. I'll put some links down below for your stuff.
Look at all the down below. Look at all these links.
There's all the stuff. But yeah, I'll see you guys later.
So long.
Bye.